Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Fort Lauderdale. We are a worldwide organization dedicated to awakening consciousness, a spiritual community that honors all teachings and all spiritual teachers. Please join us now for the podcast of today's celebration.
A moment now after that beautiful music, and have just a few more chords out of the boys while we settle our minds into our spiritual place, our quiet place, letting go of all the busyness that came in the door with us this morning. Just set it down. You can always pick it up and take it with you later if you think you still need it. However, as we go through our service today, I believe you'll hear some words, pick up some ideas, change your thinking just a little bit. Remembering that first and foremost, every word we hear is the Word of God, the Word of Spirit, flowing through the speakers, flowing through ourselves as we listen, digest, and integrate the new ideas, the old ideas heard in new ways, the new beliefs we will take with us at the end of the day. Each of us being fully immersed in Spirit, fully encompassed by Spirit, each of us is simply an expression of Spirit, and as such, can only know the best and highest good for those around us, and most importantly, for ourselves. For it is through ourselves that we project out into our community, bringing with us the highest spiritual, Christ-like nature that we are. I invite you now to take a moment to just bring forth any idea that is troubling you, or the name of some person in your acquaintance that is a little out of balance right now, physically, emotionally, however. Hold that person, hold yourself in that place of spiritual magnificence, fully aware that the power of Spirit is available to each and every one, flowing through each and every one of us in each and every moment. We are expressions of this love. We are conduits for this love. We are this love. Spirit flows through us, acts as us, and with us brings peace, harmony, and joy to a greater and greater community. This is a truth I know. This is the truth my heart overflows with joy as I remember and project back into the universe to grow, evolve, and return to me in ways I cannot begin to imagine. The joy, peace, and harmony that I am. And so it is. A longtime friend who really lit this place up for me when I first was dragged in here kicking and screaming a decade or so ago. From Naples, Florida, Senior Minister, Reverend Heidi Peck.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Wow. Feels so good to be home. Even though I am the senior minister for the Center for Spiritual Living in Naples, Fort Lauderdale will always be my home. I remember crashing through those double doors. Maybe some of you have done that in a state of desperation. Never in my wildest imagination would I ever think that I would come out the other end facilitating the Center for Spiritual Living in Naples as their senior minister. How did that happen? Don't you wonder about that sometimes? Last night I was given the gift of doing a christening for a young boy about the age of 4. And so he was wandering around a little bit during the ceremony, as you can imagine. And I had warned him ahead of time that there was going to be an experiential part where we would take a white rose that had been dipped in the holy water, and we would be putting it on his forehead, and it would be very soft and very fun. And so when it came to that part, amazingly enough, he got real still. And he really was focused. He was really part of that ever-present one, which is what I want to speak to you about this morning. And when everything was said and done, what was really interesting is that he kept going back to take the rose off the bowl and do it to himself. And he came up to me after several times and he said to me, I've been baptized 7 times now. And I thought, 7? Wow. Metaphysically, that means completion. And I was actually on this stage for the first time in July of 2004. And this is 7 years later, and I'm back again. So interesting, that full circle and how life leads you through the different experiences. So Dr. Ernest Holmes, who, for those of you who are here for the first time don't know, is the founder of the Science of Mind teaching. And he tells us that the things that are seen are not made of the things that appear. So if this is true, then what makes them appear? What is the manifest world that we live in really made out of? And how does everything come into expression? Although these questions might seem complicated, once you begin to understand the principles of science of mind, they really become very simplistic. One of the gurus in our movement, Dr. J. Scott Neal, is often heard to say, the science of mind teaching is so simple, we had to complicate it up so that everyone would understand it. So in a nutshell, behind every experience, there is a word, whether it's spoken or unspoken. You heard Reverend Glenn just speak about that during his meditation, the power of the word. So behind every experience or situation, there was once a thought or an idea in someone's mind. And that thought has the power to move the creative substance into the form or the situation or the experiences that we encounter. Now, the tricky part, of course, is that we have to open a channel through which that substance can move. So whatever we think about, we have the power to create, if we're willing to stretch our spiritual muscle. Or as Dr. Arlene would always say, if we're willing to step out onto the skinny branches. The universe doesn't care what choices you make. It only knows to act upon them based upon the belief that lies underneath them. So have you ever found yourself wondering what else could possibly happen? Last Thursday, I had a computer experience. Maybe some of you have been there. I couldn't get in my email. I couldn't get the newsletter done by the 1 o'clock deadline. I had a 3-hour board meeting. And I found myself getting up the next morning on Friday saying, what else could possibly happen? So for those of you who don't know, the Center for Spiritual Living in Naples now has a new permanent home. Yay! We just moved in. Thank you very much. We moved into our new location in March, and we had our grand opening the third weekend of June. So I showed up at the center the next morning, and what else could happen? The ceiling was falling. Turns out the air conditioning had a little challenge, and so there was all this wonderful foam and insulation and stuff hanging down through the ceiling. So remember that your thinking creates your experience. So whether you're in a higher or a lower level of awareness is totally up to you. It's how you look at the situation, what you believe about it that's important. Dr. Holmes tells us that each life, human or divine, each manifestation is a different kind of word coming into expression. So the desire to experience life means that we're conscious of it. And because we're aware that we exist, it's logical to surmise that what we see must come from what we think about. So if you don't like what's happening around you, you might want to take inventory of your thoughts. Start seeing through the inner eye, seeing something different than what's in the physical world. When we depend completely upon the outside world for our reality, we live in what I like to call the land of effect, where we get busy moving the things around. But we don't do the inner work, which happens in what I like to call the land of cause, where we work in the spiritual reality. We create our experience based upon where we are in alignment with that ever-present one, or that infinite intelligence, or spirit, or God. People call it Buddha. It has lots of names. What's really important is that you call it and you make it personal to yourself. It never fails. It doesn't play favorites. It gives to everyone exactly in proportion to the way we believe. So I have this belief about never having enough time. So what else could I manifest for myself except a deadline for a newsletter, right? It's only natural for me to encounter a deadline because I've created in my mind the belief that I don't have enough time. By the way, did I mention that I'm the one who created the deadline? So the work is done in my consciousness. It's up to me to create the opening for a new possibility. Now, how do I do that? Well, when all else fails, what do? Pray? Could that possibly make a difference? So you begin to do the work. You begin to practice the affirmative prayer, the spiritual mind treatment that we teach here at the center. And start working on a new idea of what that deadline can look like for you. What the idea of having absolutely enough time to do everything can be like. So now I'm working on manifesting the 12 people that it takes to implement my vision. And I was so excited to finally get here and go into the community room and see the vision board, because you guys are doing what we want to do in Naples. So I've decided it takes 12 people to implement my vision, and we need $7 million. So just let me know if you know somebody that has that, because I'm open and receptive. Okay, so in order to create, we have to use that power. And the way that we access that power is through our imagination. And there are 3 steps within that creative process. The first step is that there is always an inner activity of thought. Always. Then that impulse operates upon that universal substance, and presto, there is a situation or an experience at hand. So everything that we see is a result of mind in action. The creative power within the universal substance receives every impression of our thought, no matter how large or how small, and it reflects it right back to us as our experience. The only thing we have to do is get out of our own way. Most of the world doesn't understand this simple truth, which is the reason why it seems to be in such chaos. But contrary to popular belief, out of that chaos comes what? Creation. So a new idea is being born from underneath all of that chaos. So if my primary focus is in the land of effect, all I'm going to do is just rely on my five senses: taste, touch, smell, vision, and hearing. I'm not going to be going within to access the spiritual power that is my divine birthright. The great master teacher Jesus put it this way: it is done unto you as you believe. As being the key word. If there is real faith in your belief, nothing can get in your way. Think about the woman who rode the public bus and put all her ideas on a napkin. Is there anyone on planet Earth now who doesn't know who Harry Potter is? Probably no one, right? That all started in her imagination. So when we take the time to silence our own soul and to really go within and do the spiritual work through prayer, meditation, communing with nature, reading inspirational works, listening to the wonderful music. This morning, all these great toys. I love all those flutes. How fun to play with something new. When we do that, we're opening a channel for spirit to flow through us. So the question becomes, how are we thinking about life? Do we believe that the world's coming to an end? Are we governed by that outer confusion? Or are we relying on that higher power that emanates from within each of us to make our decisions and to guide us into our greatness? We cannot stop things from happening, but it's because we cannot stop thinking. I remember early on in this teaching when I was trying to learn how to do meditation. Maybe some of you have been there. I wanted to get it right. And I had this little doll when I was a kid called Chatty Cathy. She had this little ring in the back of her neck, and you would pull the ring, and she would talk. And as soon as I sat down to meditate, she would show up and start talking to me about the laundry and the dishes and, my commitment to do this and to do that. Dr. Holmes tells us it is not enough to say we attract what we think. We become what we think. And when we become, we also attract. So accessing that higher consciousness happens in your mind. We have to learn how to quiet that monkey mind. The law will pick up every single thought that you put into it, and it'll outpicture it through your experience. Spirit creates by becoming the thing that it creates. And it does that through our thinking. There's no other possible way that it can work. So when we pray, we talk to God. When we meditate, God talks to us. It's kind of like when you get on your computer and you type a message into the little search engine and immediately something pops back out at you. Sort of like a DSL to God. That's what prayer and meditation is. You put it in, it comes back to you. So if you have an interest in evolving your connection to Spirit, we're going to be doing some exciting experiential exercises this afternoon in my workshop, and I cordially invite you to join us. And I should probably tell you that wherever Reverend Heidi is, there's always chocolate involved. Some of you know that about me. So in order to transcend our old thought patterns, we have to begin to think from a higher level of awareness. Dr. Holmes tells us we must provide the mental receptivity that will prepare us to accept the gift when Spirit makes it. So let's talk about that receptivity, that preparedness, and that acceptance. So we'll start with receptivity. What is receptivity all about? Receptivity is about building a belief system. Let's say, for example, that we're working in the area of abundance, and we don't happen to have any greenbacks on us, but we really want a cup of coffee in the worst way. So we go to the convenience store, and that little subjective voice will come up and say, how are you going to get that cup of coffee when you don't have any money in your pocket? So then we're going to do that famous deny the denial, right? That's step 5 and 6 of treatment. And we're going to simply say, I am abundant. And we're going to open up to another possibility of how that cup of coffee can show up. Perhaps you're going to be the 999th customer who crosses the threshold and you get a free cup of coffee. Maybe you'll find $5 on the sidewalk in front of the store and you can get 2 cups of coffee. Maybe you'll run into a friend that you haven't seen in a long time and they'll treat you to a cup of coffee. So it's all about developing a belief system that supports that receptivity that opens the channel to Spirit. How about the second one? Preparedness. Preparedness is about having complete clarity about what we want. And you guys are beginning to build that with the vision board in the community room about what this center's about to evolve into. For those of you who have been in class with me, you probably are aware of the fact that I've been working on trying to manifest the red convertible BMW Z4 for about 2 years. And at that juncture, I left to go to Naples, but I was still working on it. I want you to know I was still working on it. So at the end of the first year, I got a raise, which was really cool. So I was able to actually go to the dealership and get the car. Now, when I got there, the red convertible Z4 was twice the price of anything else on the whole lot. So I test drove the silver one. I test drove the green one. And then I went home. Went online. Saw this really pretty blue one. Now, blue is my favorite color, so there was an opening there. But it still wasn't the red convertible BMW Z4. So, long story short, I wound up with the blue one. And I go home and I'm sitting there and I look at the vision board and I see that when I had gone originally to start creating the vision board, technology had advanced. So they no longer had all of the multiple choices of picture books. There was only the picture book that was for the accessories. So I took it home anyways, cut it out and put it up on the vision board. Guess what color it was? Blue. I love the car. It's great fun. But it's my responsibility to create the opening. I have to give Spirit a clear channel through which to manifest. So what about acceptance? Acceptance is the third one. Acceptance is about being in complete harmony with Spirit. So regardless of what's happening in our world, finding the good in everything and everyone. When I first arrived in Naples, I got an invitation to speak at the Unity of Naples. And I ran into this woman in the ladies' room who had been on the mailing list, unbeknownst to me, and she had asked the pastor to invite me to their 24-hour prayer vigil. And so, most people don't even speak to each other in the elevator or in the bathroom or, places where you encounter people, but you don't even talk to them. So, long story short, this woman is the one who is responsible for inviting us into the permanent space that the Center for Spiritual Living Naples is now located in. So talk to everybody, right? Everything in the universe is on purpose. There are no accidents. So even though we might not understand the situation that's in front of us, wherever we find ourselves is exactly where we're supposed to be. Why? Because of the choices that we've made along the way. So remember, if you create some imaginary deadline in your mind, you have the power to change it. Why does it have to be Thursday at 2 o'clock? Why can't it be Friday? Anytime. All I have to do is get out of my own way. And when the BMW shows up as the color blue, I love it. I don't care, right? Eventually, it could be red. In the meantime, I'm enjoying the ride, as Alan Cohen would say. So outside experiences will always make an impression on us. Sometimes it can be hard to see the underlying truth. But if we could see our thoughts and take a picture of them, they would look exactly like the experiences that we're in. So Dr. Holmes tells us, if you want to get or do a new thing, you have to get or do a new thought. So let your imagination flow. Create a spiritual prototype, like the vision board that you have in your community room. And allow the idea of a new possibility to begin to surface through your experience. We're surrounded by a thought atmosphere that sets the law of attraction in motion. It's kind of like a giant cosmic soup. You choose the flavors, you choose the ingredients, you choose whether you want it hot or cold. And if you don't get mired down in the muck of the situation, the things in the outer world will begin to shift. When we see through our inner spiritual eye, not looking out at the land of effect, but going within to find and work with that ever-present one, new thought patterns will begin to come into existence. And we'll begin to attract a greater realization of our good. What greater realization of life is there? It's all good. It's all God. The ever-present one is always available. All you have to do is open the channel and let it flow through you. Thank you, and namaste.
This podcast is produced and recorded by the Center for Spiritual Living, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You may support these podcasts